Hello, hello. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight from Kalamazoo, Michigan. I'm Charles Coates, and this is our weekly block paper print live stream episode 2. So I am so excited to share with you tonight this exercise I have planned, which I call the Generous Printmaker Brainstorm Framework. And the reason I'm so excited to share this is because this exercise in 20 minutes is going to alleviate some of the most challenging technical aspects of the printmaking process. So before we get into that, I'll give you a little bit of an agenda for what we have planned for this session. It looks like some of you are trying to get on. I think you're on. If you can hear me okay, if you're on and watching it, just go ahead and type something into the chat, right? And if you're looking for something to type into the chat, why don't you type in where you're tuning in from? Give us the city and state. And let's see, I'm going to bring up our agenda here while you're doing that. And okay, here it is. So our agenda is, first, I'm going to talk to you about the Generous Printmaker framework. After that, I'm going to share with you the top 3 generous printmakers, my top 3 generous printmakers, and what makes them a generous printmaker, what kind of qualities they have. I had so much fun putting that list together. And so I can't wait to share it with you and hear your reactions to that. So let's get into the Generous Printmaking framework. Why am I sharing this with you? The reason is because overwhelmingly, people are posting in relief printmaking groups and lino cut printmaking groups that they are running into challenges with the printmaking process, that the printmaking process is no longer enjoyable because they're having trouble printing or carving is too difficult for them. There is some sort of technical hurdle that they just can't get over, right? And the purpose of this process is to reframe what a successful print actually is, right? When we look up Instagram or YouTube, one thing that I notice all the time is that people are posting these really pristinely perfect prints. Everything is so nice and organized. And that's, while craft is really important, while we want to strive to pull perfectly solid prints, that's not always the most important thing. Craft is really the supporting element to the idea behind the print. So the first thing I want you to take away from this lesson tonight is that printmaking, first and foremost, is an information technology. From making playing cards, maps, posters for theaters, advertisements in magazines, spreading spiritual texts, even pretty pictures on the wall that do have craft, even for reproducing paintings in print form that people want to hang on their wall but they can't afford. From 120 AD all the way up to the 21st century, people make prints to spread ideas for a purpose, right? Even if the purpose is gambling, even if the purpose is spreading spirituality, right? The craft is the vehicle for the purpose. So do those solid blacks really matter, right? If someone is looking at a print that resonates with them, is it the idea behind the print that resonates with them? Or is it because it's pristine and perfect? Okay, so that's the first thing that I want you to take away. The only thing, if you take anything away from this live session, it's that craft is only a supporting vehicle to drive the idea. The second thing that I want you to take away is that print being an information technology, what matters secondary to the idea is how many hands you put them in. That's the whole reason we make prints in the first place, right? To make multiple originals. If you're only going to make one print, then make it a painting, right? But we are making multiple original works of art to place into the hands of others to spread ideas. That is what makes printmaking a generous medium, because the core nature of printmaking itself is the democratic spreading of ideas. To me, that's really beautiful. And when you think about that, we have, printmaking is the ancestor to the internet, to billboards, to TV, all media advertising. But printmaking, woodblock printmaking, lino cut printmaking is still relevant today because every form of advertising that we see today is glossy and machine made. And when you put a print, a hand pulled print into someone else's hand with imperfections, they know it came from a human being that used tools and instruments to produce it. So those imperfections that I think people post in forums about, that they're worried about, that they want to solve, those imperfections adversely are features. They're not a bug. Those spotty prints and slightly off register prints are proof that it came from human hands and not some perfect machine made software program. Now, of course, a caveat to that is we, of course, do want to strive for craft. I'm not saying be sloppy. I'm not saying don't focus on craft at all. Because absolutely you should, and you should challenge yourself to become a skillful carver and a skillful printer. I'm just saying that's not the only gauge. That's not the important gauge to measure the success of your print. So I hope that makes sense. So that's why I'm so excited to teach you guys this exercise. I see some of you are from Jacksonville, Florida. That's wonderful because I'm from Jackson. I was raised in Jacksonville, Florida. I miss it. It's a really cool city to grow up in. I went to an art school in Jacksonville, Douglas Anderson, and we'll talk about that later. So now I'm going to demo the framework for you. So I'm going to switch to my top-down view right here, and hopefully you can see. And what I want you to do now is to grab your printer paper, your sketchbook, Sharpie, Post-its, whatever you need to do this exercise, because I want you to do it along with me. And we are going to start by drawing out a grid. So here on the top, I've written voice. I want you to do the same. So go ahead and just imitate me as I draw out this 12 box grid here. And again, I'm not being super precise as I do this, drawing a big square and then dividing it into 4 sections. Like so. And then I'm going to apply 2 headers to this section. All right. So along the top where I have voice, I'm going to write play, political, science, and this one I'm going to leave blank. I'm going to let you fill it in. You write whatever you want here. Along this side, I'm going to write delivery. Oh boy. Delivery. Okay, and you don't have to fill this blank in yet. You can do that later after we fill in these. And so here, I'm going to write a formal header. I'm going to write the public header, public. Then I'm going to write print media. And down here, I'm going to write post. Okay, so let me describe what we're looking at here. Voice is your voice, your personal feelings on play, political, science, and whatever this blank is. I'm just going to put spirituality. Seems like a good one, right? Let's get spiritual. So play can be games and hobbies. Political can be like world trends, laws, things like that. Anything that's in the current political or cultural sphere. Science is everything nature, technology, our bodies, and spiritual can refer to religion, of course, meditation, any other type of spiritual practice. And so these are these four quadrants that represent your voice, right? And of course, going back to what I was talking about before, the first thing I want you to take away from this is the idea behind your print, which is the most important thing. That's your voice. Your voice equals your idea. That's what the craft supports, your idea. All right, this always comes first. Under delivery, we're going to talk about formal. The delivery is the actual delivery of the prints to someone else. So in a formal setting, this would be a gallery or a museum, okay? Or an auction house, right? That's somebody seeing your prints in a formal setting. In the public sphere, this would represent, let's say, federal buildings, like a library. The other day I went to a hospital and there was this beautiful Diego watercolor, original Diego Rivera watercolor in the Bronson Methodist Hospital. It was so amazing. I was so excited to be in the hospital so I could see that painting. So the public sphere, right? Federal buildings, street art, murals. This is also the public sphere. Print media. This covers everything from books, magazines, publications, newspapers, okay? And then the post, which is cards and printmaking exchange, anything you put in the mail, right? And the postman delivers it somewhere else. So these are our quadrants. And as we do this exercise, we are going to brainstorm ideas for prints, for 12 prints, and we're going to do that by cross-referencing every single one of these. So you're going to move from square to square, cross-referencing play with formal, political with formal, science with formal, etc. Then play with public, political with public, right? You understand? So I'm going to do this exercise with you, and I'm going to set a timer for 15 minutes. Actually, for the purposes of this exercise, and you can do it at home, I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes, right? I'm going to keep this exercise shorter and just fill in some of these so you get the idea. So we're going to set a timer for 5 minutes, and we're going to start moving through the exercise, and I'll let you know when 5 minutes is up. As you write in each quadrant, I want you to keep a few things in mind. The first one is no idea is a bad idea. So just brain dump anything you want. Don't judge. When you combine play and formal, right? This, for example, could be a playing card, right? Playing cards in a museum, right? There you go. That's a really interesting idea for a museum exhibition. You invite visitors to the museum to play playing cards with you, and maybe the playing cards are prints. So you see how these two pollinate to create a brand new idea. What works really well for this exercise is mini post-it notes, right? Because you can take these and then kind of post it on there and write your idea and then put it somewhere else, right? And then just keep posting them on there. So that's how I would approach doing this exercise. That's how I do approach this exercise. So we're going to go ahead and get right to it. Starting now, 5 minutes, fill in as many of these boxes as you can. No need to rush though. All right, go. All right, so we have about 3 minutes left. Go ahead and keep filling in all of these blanks. As I'm going, I've already come up with a few really surprising ideas. Under play in public, I wrote print hopscotch in a park. And then I thought, whoa, that's a crazy awesome idea. I have no idea where that came from. I just wrote it out. And then I said, you know, it'd be even crazier if it was in City Hall, right? A printmaking hopscotch game that you can move from all these different federal buildings. How amazing to have like federal officials play hopscotch in the building. So I'm going to keep going. Okay, about a minute and a half left. All right, about 45 seconds left. Okay, that's it. Time is up. So I want to hear from you. Please let me know what you came up with. What are your insights after doing this exercise? Please type your insights into the chat. I'd love to know how this works for you. Right? And while you're kind of stepping back and taking a moment to absorb everything that you wrote down, I'm just going to go through some of these and talk about some of these ideas that popped into my head. So for play and post, I got this idea of sending prints in the mail, kind of like a printmaking pen pal, right? I think that would be fun. So maybe you send a half-finished print in the mail to somebody, they print on it and send it back. Or you have a group of people, right? You send the same unfinished print out to, like, let's say 10 different people, and then they all each print on it and send it back to you. Kind of like a long distance collaborative effort. That's interesting. Let's see, we have print linos over political pieces. This is from the Political Voice and Print Media. This is a really compelling idea because the surface of what you print on, right? When we look at prints, it's usually on white paper or the paper is paper, right? But what is the paper? That's one of the more evocative things about printmaking, I think, right? How does your print alter, subvert the surface it's printed on? So if you were to take out a, print over a political piece in a newspaper, what piece would that be? And what would your print do to it, right? Very evocative. Notice how none of these focus on the craft. It's all about the voice and it's all about the delivery, right? And then the craft comes after those things. So these are, I already in 5 minutes, I filled up all these, and I'm sure from one of these, we can get a really incredible evocative project. And I'm sure that the ones that you filled out are going to have the same type level of, of potential. So this is a really great exercise that you can do to really take your mind off the technically challenging aspects of printmaking and understand that at the end of the day, they're not as important as your voice, your idea, and the delivery. How many hands do you put that print into? All right. If there is a beautiful, technically perfect print and it's just sitting in the drawer, what good is it? Why isn't it just, a painting? So thank you for doing this activity with me. And now we're going to move on to what I feel are the top 3 generous printmakers. Before I move on, I'm just wondering if anyone has any comments or like to share anything from this exercise. And if you don't right now, that's okay. You can just type it into the chat afterwards, and I'll talk about it after I do the top 3. Okay, so top 3 generous printmakers. What does that mean? How did I go about creating this list? Well, what I noticed is, let's see, I'm going to pull this off. Wait, there we go. What I noticed when I was building this list for top 3 generous printmakers is that printmakers are a very giving bunch. A very giving bunch. And I always knew this. I've been trading and collecting prints and from other printmakers, friends, colleagues for decades. And everyone is so open and sharing techniques. So printmaking being a very curious medium, it really helps, that generosity, comes naturally to the process. So when I was ranking the top 3 generous printmakers, I looked for a few things. One, their prints had to be affordable when they lived. So pretty much anybody could buy them, right? So affordability and accessibility. Could someone easily see their work? That's the first thing I gravitated towards. 2, How much did they share their knowledge? How open were they about their techniques and their process? For not decades, centuries, print shops would hide their secrets. And that all changed in the 21st century uh, with the Tamarind Institute. I'm not going to get into that history right now, maybe if I have time later, but up until the 21st century, when printmaking was a trade, all these print shops would hide their secrets and their techniques. They wouldn't tell anybody. As a result, some techniques almost died out. But so affordability, accessibility, and knowledge. The first printmaker that I'm going to talk to you about today is Swoon. She is a living artist. She goes by the name Swoon. She lives in Brooklyn, New York. And I saw her speak at Southern Graphics, and Southern Graphics Council is a huge printmaking conference, and her work just stunned me. So her artwork raises ideas about social injustice, poverty, and she travels all over the world and pastes these beautiful lino cut prints up on the streets, anywhere you can look. Anywhere she could travel, she would paste up these gorgeous lino cuts of people that she met. And so here's an example. She would go to everywhere in the US. She would go to Baghdad, Hong Kong, Brazil, and talk to people there, interview them, carve out these beautiful portraits of them, and just paste them on the walls. And so this is one of her prints called Thalassa. And what makes Swoon, and especially just Printmaker, is that you can walk down an alleyway and see her art for free at no cost, right? Just open to the public, and look how beautiful that is. Or you can see the exact same print in a museum, in a gallery, right? So Thalassa, the exact same print, was also exhibited in the New Orleans Museum of Art and in the Detroit Museum of Art. And you could even see it maybe walking on the way to the museum. And then you're walking to the museum and see the exact same print. That's the type of generosity you can't get with a painting. And that is what makes printmaking such a powerful, personal medium, right? And that's what makes Swoon a generous printmaker. All right, here are a few more of hers. It's just so hard to narrow it down. This is one in Baghdad right here, and you can kind of see it in the center of the screen, just absolutely stunning. The second generous printmaker is Keith Haring. And we all know Keith Haring's artwork. He only had a 10-year career. It was cut short, due to complications of AIDS, sadly. But in that 10 years, he was one of the most prolific artists and printmakers working in his time. And his line was uniquely suited for printmaking. It's bold, it's graphic, it's easily recognizable. He, like Swoon, would travel all over the world and paint murals about things he cared about, his personal voice when it came to social injustice, drugs, homophobia, and the AIDS crisis. And if you grew up in the 80s or the 90s like I did, it was just impossible not to know his work. And when he started making prints, Andy Warhol introduced him to the printmaking process. He founded a shop called Print Shop. And in Print Shop, all of his prints were affordable. Anyone could walk away with a print. And at the time, prints were being sold, in high art auctions. This wasn't really a thing. So for a really high status street artist like Keith Haring, he took this idea of accessibility and affordability and founded Print Shop. And he wouldn't even sign all of his work. And as a consequence, anyone could buy his print because they loved the message. And now they're like all these unsigned Keith Haring prints out there are just worth thousands upon thousands of dollars. But he's another example of a generous printmaker because of his voice and his delivery. And I just absolutely love the way his style translates to the printmaking process. The third generous printmaker is Melanie Ozzy. Melanie is a friend of mine. She is someone who really opened my eyes to what printmaking can be. when I was first learning. She came to University of North Florida back in the early 2000s to give a demo, and I had just started printmaking then, and she was so open and kind. And she now is head of the art program at Boulder, University of Colorado in Boulder. And in her time, well, in her time still, but within a 20-year plan, she organized over 100 print exchanges. And her art was in every single one exchange. And the way the exchange works is she grabs a bunch of people or puts out a call. Hey, do you want to make some prints and trade prints? That's pretty much what it is. If 10 artists sign up, they all make 12 prints, and then they trade with each other, and every artist gets a print from another artist in that exchange. She did hundreds of them. And as a consequence, we all have like a ton of her work, and she's also selling her saying that that art in galleries for thousands of dollars. That here we are, she's sharing it with us in these exchanges. And she's also just incredibly open about her knowledge with the process as she teaches, and traveling and teaching. And yeah, in the early 2000s, when you were getting to printmaking, Melanie Ozzy was just one of those names that she was just one of those people that you had to meet. And not only is she's so prolific, but when she could be even more prolific and making even more art, instead she's organizing print exchanges to share her art with her friends, her colleagues, with people like me who at the time were new to printmaking. And that's just, and connect all of us. I made friends I still talk to today, that I met through Melanie's exchanges, right? I look at this print and I think, wow, who made this? This is incredible. And then I meet that person. And actually, it was one of Melanie's exchanges that pulled me into graduate school at the University of Arizona. One of the artists in her exchanges was Catherine Polk, a famous lithographer, and her husband taught at University of Arizona. And when I found out who she was and who her husband was after I got her beautiful print in the mail in one of Melanie's exchanges, I ended up going to graduate school there and learning from them. So Melanie's work is life-changing, and it's not because of her craft, even though her craft is undeniably incredible. It's because she is generous in her sharing of techniques and making connections, because the exchange is just such a time-consuming thing. So that's my show for today. Just to do a little recap and a little reflection, first we talked about what constitutes a successful print, right? Is it the idea, or is it craft, right? Obviously, it's the idea, the combination of idea and delivery. We then did a 5-minute exercise filling out the brainstorming framework, the Generous Printmaker brainstorming framework. And then I talked about my top 3 generous printmakers: Swoon, Keith Haring, and Melanie Ozzy. So thank you so much for joining us. I'll be back next week with a new topic. And if you love the show, if you'd like to support the show, you can do that by going to this website right here, buymeacoffee.com/blockpaperprint, and just making a small donation, $1, $3, or $5. Every little bit helps. Or you can also buy something from the Block Paper Print shop, art supplies, final cut kits, beautiful, affordable printmaking papers. And coming up on the horizon, I'm also starting pre-enrollment for a 6-week lino cut printmaking course for artists. So if you're looking to up your lino cut game, idea and craft, then look out for the pre-enrollment, because that will be starting March. And that's a 6-week live online lino cut for artists program. Again, thank you so much for tuning in tonight and joining the show. Please send any comments to charles@blockpaperprint.com. And okay, from Kalamazoo, Michigan, this is the Block Paper Print live stream series.